What if everything you were told about aging after 50 was completely wrong? What if the reason you wake up exhausted, the reason your confidence has silently disappeared, the reason your relationship feels like a distant memory of what it once was? What if all of that had one single root cause that nobody, not your doctor, not your pharmacist, not the expensive supplement companies, ever bothered to tell you about? Right now, tonight, millions of men over 50 are lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep, unable to feel like themselves anymore, wondering what happened to the man they used to be. But here is the most shocking thing you will hear today. The answer is not a prescription. It is not surgery. It is not some $1,000 treatment plan. It is one vitamin. One vitamin taken at one specific time of night. And by the time this video ends, you will never look at your bedside table the same way again. Stay with me, because what I am about to share could genuinely change the rest of your life. What if your exhaustion is not laziness? What if your poor erections are not simply aging? What if your broken sleep is not just stress? What if all three of these things, the energy drain, the sexual decline, the sleepless nights, are connected by one invisible deficiency that is silently destroying the quality of your life after 50? I want you to really sit with that for a moment, because what I'm about to share with you is not based on opinion. It is not based on marketing. It is based on biological science that has been documented, studied, and unfortunately buried under layers of pharmaceutical profit. Let us begin with the truth about what actually happens inside a man's body after the age of 50. And I want you to prepare yourself, because this information is going to feel uncomfortable at first. But that discomfort is actually the beginning of your transformation. After 50, your body begins experiencing what scientists call a triple hormonal collapse. Your testosterone starts dropping at approximately 1 to 2% every single year after the age of 30, meaning by the time you reach 55, you could have already lost up to 25% of your natural testosterone without feeling a dramatic single moment of change. It happened slowly, quietly. Like a thief that entered your home not through the front door but through a window you forgot to lock decades ago. At the same time, your body's production of nitric oxide, the molecule responsible for blood vessel dilation, blood flow, and yes, the biological mechanism behind strong and lasting erections, begins declining sharply. Nitric oxide is not something most men know about. Most men have never even heard the term. But here is the shocking reality. Without sufficient nitric oxide, your blood vessels cannot expand properly. Without that expansion, blood cannot rush into the tissues it needs to reach. And without that rush of blood, erections become weak, unreliable, and eventually absent. Not because you are broken, but because your body is running low on a molecule it desperately needs and is not receiving the support it requires to produce. And then there is the third collapse. Melatonin and deep sleep architecture. After 50, your pineal gland, which is the tiny structure in your brain responsible for producing melatonin, begins producing significantly less of this critical hormone. Less melatonin means you cannot reach deep sleep. You cannot reach what scientists call slow-wave sleep, the stage of sleep where your body repairs itself, where your brain consolidates memory, where your immune system rebuilds, and most importantly for men, where approximately 70% of your daily testosterone is produced. Read that again. 70% of your daily testosterone is produced during deep sleep. This means if you are not sleeping deeply, you are not producing testosterone. If you are not producing testosterone, your energy collapses. If your energy collapses, your motivation disappears. If your motivation disappears, your physical activity decreases. If your physical activity decreases, your nitric oxide production falls further. And if your nitric oxide falls further, your sexual function deteriorates even more dramatically. It is a devastating cycle. And millions of men over 50 are trapped inside it right now, not understanding why everything seems to be falling apart at the same time. But here is where the story changes completely. Here's the part that should make you lean forward in your seat. There is one vitamin, one specific, affordable, scientifically validated vitamin that when taken correctly, at the right time, in the right form, begins interrupting this entire destructive cycle simultaneously. Not one part of it, all three parts. The energy, the erections, the sleep. All three begin responding to this single intervention. That vitamin is vitamin D3, but not taken the way you have been told. Not in the morning with your breakfast. not whenever you remember. Taken specifically before bed, combined with magnesium glycinate, in a dosage and combination that triggers a very specific hormonal cascade inside your body while you sleep. Now I know what you are thinking. Vitamin D3? That is it? That is the big secret? And I understand that reaction completely. Because we have been conditioned to believe that serious problems require serious, expensive, complicated solutions. We have been trained to walk into a doctor's office expecting a prescription. We have been manipulated by pharmaceutical advertising to believe that the answer to our problems lives inside a pill that costs $300 a month and comes with 14 side effects listed in a voice that speaks so quickly at the end of commercials that you cannot even process what is being said. But the science does not care about your conditioning. The science simply tells the truth. Multiple peer-reviewed studies have confirmed that vitamin D3 deficiency is directly linked to low testosterone levels in men. One landmark study published in the journal Hormone and Metabolic Research found that men who took vitamin D3 supplements daily experienced a 25% increase in testosterone levels compared to men who took a placebo. 25%, without any other change. No gym, no diet overhaul, no expensive hormone therapy. Just vitamin D3. But why does it work so dramatically? Because vitamin D3 is not actually a vitamin. This is one of the most shocking facts in all of nutritional science. Vitamin D3 is technically a steroid hormone. It behaves like a hormone inside your body. It attaches to receptors in virtually every tissue, including the Leydig cells in your testes, which are the exact cells responsible for producing testosterone. When these cells receive adequate vitamin D3, they upregulate testosterone production when they are deficient. And most men over 50 are severely deficient. Testosterone production slows dramatically. Now let us talk about the connection between vitamin D3 and nitric oxide, because this is where the information becomes truly remarkable and directly relevant to your erectile function. Research published in multiple cardiovascular journals has demonstrated that vitamin D3 plays a crucial role in the health and function of your endothelium, the inner lining of your blood vessels. A healthy endothelium produces nitric oxide efficiently. A damaged or nutrient-deprived endothelium produces significantly less. Men who are deficient in vitamin D3 consistently show impaired endothelial function. This means their blood vessels are less flexible, less responsive, and less capable of dilating when blood flow is needed most, including during sexual arousal. When you correct your vitamin D3 levels, you are not just addressing a deficiency on a laboratory report. You are literally rebuilding the biological infrastructure that makes strong erections physically possible. You are restoring your blood vessels' ability to respond. You are giving your endothelium the raw material it needs to produce nitric oxide at the levels your body experienced a decade or two ago. And this is why men who correct their vitamin D3 deficiency often report changes in their sexual function within 4 to 8 weeks that they describe as almost miraculous. Not because it is magic, but because they have simply restored something that their biology always knew how to do when given the right resources. Now let us address the sleep component, because this may be the most urgent piece of the entire puzzle. Research has revealed a bidirectional relationship between vitamin D3 and sleep quality that most people, including most physicians, are not fully aware of. Vitamin D3 receptors exist in the areas of your brain responsible for sleep regulation, including the hypothalamus and the brainstem nuclei that control your sleep-wake cycles. When vitamin D3 is deficient, these brain regions cannot function optimally. The result is disrupted sleep architecture, difficulty reaching deep slow-wave sleep, frequent night waking, and an inability to feel truly rested regardless of how many hours you spend in bed. And this is precisely why taking vitamin D3 before bed, rather than in the morning, becomes so significantly more powerful for men over 50. When you consume vitamin D3 approximately 60 to 90 minutes before sleep, your body begins processing it during the exact hours when your sleep hormones are most active. The interaction between vitamin D3 and your melatonin system creates a synergistic effect that deepens your sleep stages, extends your time in slow-wave sleep, and creates the exact biological conditions under which your testosterone production is maximized. But vitamin D3 alone is only half of the equation. And this is the detail that most articles and videos about this topic completely miss, which is why so many men try vitamin D3, experience modest results, and give up. The missing partner is magnesium glycinate. Here is why this combination is absolutely critical to understand. Vitamin D3 cannot be properly activated and utilized by your body without adequate magnesium. The enzymes responsible for converting vitamin D3 into its active hormonal form are magnesium-dependent enzymes. Without sufficient magnesium, your vitamin D3 supplementation is only partially effective at best. You could be taking the highest quality vitamin D3 available and still experiencing suboptimal results simply because your body lacks the magnesium cofactor needed to complete the conversion process. And here is another shocking statistic. Research suggests that approximately 50 to 60% of adults in developed nations are magnesium deficient. It is one of the most widespread and underdiagnosed deficiencies in modern medicine. And among men over 50, the deficiency rates are even higher because magnesium absorption decreases with age and is further depleted by stress, alcohol consumption, certain medications including diuretics and proton pump inhibitors, and high sugar intake. Magnesium glycinate specifically, as opposed to other forms of magnesium like magnesium oxide or magnesium citrate, is chosen because of its superior absorption rate and its remarkable calming effect on the nervous system. Magnesium glycinate binds magnesium to the amino acid glycine, which is itself a calming neurotransmitter. The result is a supplement that not only corrects your magnesium deficiency and activates your vitamin D3, but also directly promotes muscular relaxation, reduces cortisol levels, and prepares your nervous system for deep, restorative sleep. The combination of vitamin D3 and magnesium glycinate taken together before bed creates what researchers have described as a perfect pre-sleep hormonal environment for aging men. Your cortisol drops, your magnesium rises, your vitamin D3 activates, your testosterone production during sleep increases, your sleep architecture deepens, your endothelial function begins improving, and your nitric oxide production begins recovering. This is not a theory. This is the documented, measurable, repeatable biological sequence that occurs when men over 50 combine these two supplements correctly and consistently. Now let us talk about the deficiency itself, because understanding how deficient most men are will help you understand why the results of correcting that deficiency can feel so dramatic, so quickly. The recommended blood level of vitamin D3, measured as 25-hydroxyvitamin D, is generally considered to be between 30 and 100 nanograms per milliliter. Optimal levels for testosterone support and sexual function appear to be in the range of 50 to 80 nanograms per milliliter based on available research. However, studies consistently find that the average adult male in developed countries has levels between 15 and 25 nanograms per milliliter. That means the average man is not just slightly below optimal, he is profoundly deficient. And the deeper the deficiency, the more dramatic the response when correction begins. Men who start with very low vitamin D3 levels frequently report the most significant improvements in energy, sexual function, and sleep quality within the first 30 to 60 days of proper supplementation. It is almost as though their bodies have been waiting, starving, for this nutrient, and once it arrives, multiple systems begin responding simultaneously and enthusiastically. This is why men describe the experience of correcting this deficiency as feeling like themselves again. Not a new version of themselves, their actual selves. The version that existed before the slow, invisible depletion of this critical hormone vitamin began stealing their vitality year by year. There is one more dimension of this that I want to address directly, because it affects millions of men and yet is almost never discussed openly. And that is the psychological and relational dimension of what happens when a man's energy, sleep, and sexual function decline simultaneously. When a man cannot sleep deeply, his emotional regulation suffers. He becomes more irritable, more anxious, less patient. When his energy is chronically depleted, his motivation collapses. Not just for physical activity, but for everything. His career, his relationships, his sense of purpose. And when his sexual function becomes unreliable, the psychological weight of that, the shame, the avoidance, the distance that grows between him and his partner, creates a layer of suffering that no laboratory test can fully measure. Men do not talk about this. Our culture does not create space for men to acknowledge this kind of suffering. So instead, men suffer quietly. They withdraw. They blame themselves. They age prematurely, not because their biology demanded it, but because they were never given the information they needed to intervene. What if that silence ends today? What if this is the moment where you decide that the second half of your life does not have to look like what you have been experiencing? What if you make one simple, affordable, scientifically supported decision tonight, and that decision begins a chain reaction in your biology that restores something you thought was permanently lost? The practical recommendation is straightforward. Approximately 5,000 IU of vitamin D3 combined with 300 to 400 milligrams of magnesium glycinate, taken together 60 to 90 minutes before sleep. Consistency for a minimum of 60 to 90 days to allow your blood levels to rise to optimal range and for your tissues to respond to the improved hormonal environment. If possible, have your vitamin D3 blood levels tested before beginning and again after 90 days so you can see the quantifiable change that is occurring inside your body. Before beginning any supplement regimen, particularly at therapeutic doses, it is always advisable to consult with a qualified healthcare provider who understands your individual health history and can personalize recommendations accordingly. This is not optional advice. It is essential. Because while vitamin D3 and magnesium glycinate are safe and well tolerated for most men, individual circumstances always matter. But do not let that caution become an excuse for inaction. Do not let the perfect become the enemy of the possible. Schedule the conversation with your doctor. Get your levels tested. Take the information you now possess and use it to have an intelligent, informed discussion about your health rather than waiting passively for your doctor to notice something is wrong. Because here is the final truth I want to leave you with. Your doctor is extraordinary at diagnosing disease. But the space between disease and optimal health, that vast territory where millions of men over 50 are currently living, feeling not quite sick but nowhere near their best, that space is often left unaddressed by conventional medicine. That space is your responsibility to navigate with the best available information. And now you have it. What began tonight as a question, what if, has now become an answer. The answer is that your body after 50 is not broken. It is not declining irreversibly. It is not surrendering. It is simply deficient. Specifically, profoundly, correctively deficient in a vitamin hormone that modern life has systematically depleted from the bodies of men who deserve better. The three things you want most: to wake up with genuine energy, to feel confident and capable in your most intimate moments, and to sleep so deeply that morning feels like a gift rather than a burden. All three are biologically possible. All three are within reach. All three begin with one decision made tonight before you go to bed. The science exists. The solution is affordable. The only question remaining is whether you will act on what you now know. And I believe you will, because you watched this until the very end. And that alone tells me everything about the kind of man you are.